lose that ability to have dreams, right? It's like, it's not when you're a kid, you dream like you daydream. You would catch our kids looking out the window. What are you doing? I'm daydreaming. A lot of times when we get older, those sort of get washed to the side. We're busy in life. So I'm going to pose a question to you tonight. And maybe when we finish, instead of a Q&A, because you don't want to ask me questions and get answers, because I don't have any answers. Maybe you can share with me what your thoughts are of my question. So, what do you hope for? What are your hopes? Where are your hopes? What do you hope for? Do you have hopes? Do you have dreams? What do you hope for? So when we finish this, we'll see if we can talk about that really quickly and share if you feel comfortable to share. That would be great, right? I'd like to thank the King's Church. I'd like to thank Tyler for having these things, because they're amazing. I mean, people's personal stories, they're inspiring, and they're confirming. They're confirming that the path we're on, we're not alone. And we said muck and mire before. I keep referring to that. I don't know why, but he's pulled many people out of the muck and mire because he's constantly, actively pursuing us. He doesn't stop. God doesn't stop pursuing us, right? So that's kind of a wow moment for me. I'm going to start with a little story with my dad. And we were blessed, Liz and I were blessed to be able to move up to Owen Sound. My stepmother passed away. My dad was by himself, and he moved into Summit Place. And every Wednesday was my dad day. I was able to have some special time. I'd pick my dad up. We'd always went to Tim Hortons. And then we'd go to maybe Walmart, or maybe we'd go to Shoppers Drug Mart. It was our day that we spent together. And every time that we had that special time, I'd bring him home, and I get him back into the lodge, and I'd say goodbye. This one particular day, he said, "Son, I want you to come upstairs. I got something for you." And I was perplexed because I knew everything in my dad's room. I moved it all in there for him. What did he have for me? Like a cookie? There was definitely no way that. What could he have for me in that room? I gotta go back a few days prior to that. I was praying to God, and I was saying, God, how did my dad deal with me when I was a young kid? How did he deal with me? How do I deal with my son? I'm going through the same thing that I'm sure my dad. How did he do? So I had this question to God, and asking for help, right? And so as I got up to the room with my dad said, "Here, son, I've got something for you," and he handed me this little book. This little book here. It's a New Testament. And he goes, "Son, do you know what that is?" And I said, "Well, Dad, it's a New Testament with Psalms." He's going, "No, son. Open the book." And I said, "Well, okay." So I opened the book. There was some writing in it. He said, "Son, read the writing." And it says, "I became a Christian on July 27th, 1973 at Camp Minneola." And there was my signature, Kevin Usher. 1973. That tells you how old I am, right? And that was kind of an amazing moment when I read that. But then my dad said something to me. He said, "Son, you don't know how many times I've looked at that page. You don't know how many times I've referred to that page." There was an answer to my prayer. There was an answer to my question to God. How did my dad deal with me? He looked at this because he knew I was saved. He knew that God had a hold of me. He knew that I gave my life to Christ, and he knew that God was pursuing me, and he wasn't going to give up on me. And conversely, my son at 16 years of age gave his life to Christ. So I don't worry. Worry's a waste of emotion. I have concern for him, yes. And I would say with him being in the room too, that he would know that I pray for him, and I know that God's got, just like Jeremiah 29:11, what Nick shared with us. God has a plan for you, a plan to succeed and not to harm, a plan for hope and a future. There's that word hope. Remember, what do you hope for? We'll be asking that question later. But so that was really quite an aha moment for me when my dad did that. And gave me that book, and I'm so thankful to spend his last 4 years with him. And kind of funny, when I was a teenager, never really listened to my dad, but when my dad was in his late 80s and into his 90s, I was able to listen to him for the first time, and those words of wisdom's like, "You know that you know that you know," or he'd say like, "One step at a time, son." And he told me he was proud of me every day, every chance he had. He said, "Son, I'm proud of you," and that was embedded in me for the first time. Never listened to it when I was a kid or a teenager, right? Kind of a different place, right? So let me get to my story, my testimony. And I was adopted when I was 1 year old, a little young fella, and we lived in Etobicoke, down in Toronto. And I grew up there. I had an older sister. She was 6 years older than me. And my sister was sort of, at that age, 6 years old, I really didn't spend much time with her, right? So I was not a lonely, what do you call it? A lone child?
Only child.
An only child. I had a sister, but we were never really together. So I was always seeking attention. Always seemed that I was trying to get attention, right? And so I grew up going to Hillview Presbyterian Church, and I went to Camp Minneoe. But when I went to school, scholastically, you remember that desk that was at the front of the principal's office? Remember the desk? There would always be that one desk. Very, very, very often I would be at that desk at the principal's office because I'd be playing the class clown. I'd be the guy that was trying to get people's attention, always trying to lash out and say, hey, look at me, right? And so going forward into my teenage years, I, again looking for attention, thought, wow, what about this thrill of stealing flags? Me and my buddy started to steal flags off of flagpoles. You put the knife in your mouth and you climb up the flagpole, grab this flag and come on down. And I thought it was the coolest thing to do. And I remember walking home on a Saturday afternoon, squad car in my driveway. And my heart sunk. I knew I didn't want to go in. Where do I go? I don't want to go in there. I know what's waiting for me. I'm in trouble. And I remember going in there and I looking at my parents. I was like Amber, I'm sure. I was like a red light. I was so embarrassed. And my dad knew exactly where the flags were. And the police officer had them all on the table. And it wasn't funny at the time. And that was my first time that, hey, I was a criminal. That's what they were saying. Well, this is a crime. You've committed a crime. We've got to, you're going to court. And I'm like, what? And so, you know what? It was quite an experience, but apparently not enough because I thought I could get better at this thieving and stealing, right? So I elevated it into, let's go for automotive. So that's what, Camaro one day. I'm in a Camaro at night, 17 years of age. The lights come around, police are there. I run away. I ran fast, and I thought I was far enough away, but no, they caught up with me. They got me. Here's my second charge. And now this time, grand theft auto. This wasn't light. I was in trouble. When I called my dad from the police shop that day, I had no one but my father to call. I didn't know what to do. And when I called it, he came and picked me up, and that awkward silence on that drive home, that was really hard, because my dad, although married, and my mom was in the picture, she was in the hospital most of the time. Since I was 6 years of age, to when she passed when I was 19, she was in and out of the hospital. My dad literally went to work, and then he was there raising me. So a huge disappointment, not just once, but twice. Here, this young kid, and on my 18th birthday, we went to court, and I thought, man, they were telling me there was jail time attached to this for sure. You're going in. And I wasn't ready for that. I was born in yuppie Etobicoke. I was like, are you kidding me? This is not happening. And by some miracle, I got community service and probation with the John Howard Society. I have no idea how that happened. And it was so dismissed so quickly, I didn't even hear what happened. By the time they called my name and it finished, I was walking out. I was going, how is that happening? How am I not being incarcerated? I had no idea. So I thought, you know what? I'm a failure at this, at stealing stuff. So why not change professions? And I'll become a drug dealer. Well, let's try that, right? So, they seem to be driving nice cars and making good money, right? So I thought at the age of 18, let's start up this business. And it started out with pot, hash, mushrooms, and back then speed was big, right? Everybody took speed pills so you could stay awake forever. And then it escalated to cocaine. And met a lot of really questionable people through that. I'll tell you, ups and downs of that lifestyle. Really, when I look back at it, the choices that I made, I never say that I have any regrets because I can't change the past. But when I look at my choices, I say, wow, how did I make it through all of those awkward situations? Was God there watching me? taking care of me? Was I in the palm of his hand? Was I 1 in 99 that he was hurting and making sure it was okay? I would say yeah. I would say that yeah. He was watching over me. Although that's not what I wanted or needed or was far away from me as possible, as in my mind, as far away from him as possible. He wasn't far away. He was constantly pursuing me. I was in and out of the bars, working bars, dealing drugs, and then this miracle happened when I was 27. My son was born. And beautiful, bouncing boy. It was a new lease on life. It changed things for me, changed my dynamic, got out of the bars, and I was a chef by trade. Went back into working at a friend's racket and fitness academy, and it was a little bit of a change. And that lasted for a year and a half, but then the ugly rearing of the addiction head came back, and back in it I went in full force this time. I wasn't dealing with small stuff anymore. I was dealing with the big guys, especially my buddies that were involved in gangs. I looked up one of my best buddies. He was a sergeant of arms, and they embraced me like a brotherhood. Here I was searching for people again. They took me in. They were friendly with me. They loved me. Oh yeah, hugging me like. We weren't hugging, but these guys were like, I wasn't hugging people. These guys would come up and they'd hug you. It's like, wow, this is like a family. And I remember the one day I was at the clubhouse, I'm in the basement, and the guy that I'm following, the leader of the place, we'll call him Bird. Everybody had a nickname. But there he is, he's got a needle in his arm, he's on the ground, his buddies are around, and he's doing the funky chicken. And I'm going, that's the guy I'm following. That's the guy I'm following. What's with this? That doesn't look, that's just not fitting. It's not making, I don't understand. Why am I following this guy? What's going on? And then, I guess I was about 35. Yeah, 35 years of age. Had maybe 4 or 5 days of partying maybe, and I was just spent. I was done. Fetal position on the bed. I basically thought I was dying. And I looked up to God and I said, if you're there, and when I say I looked up to God, I was angry. I was going to say pissed. I was angry. I was really, really angry. And I said, God, if you're there, what's going on? I've had enough of this. Literally, the next day when I woke up, transformation occurred. And I wasn't happy about that either. Like, I reached out, and literally the next day, I couldn't do drugs anymore. I feared them. I didn't want them near me. I was like, what's going on? And I was like, I remember being on the trolley car down in Toronto on Lakeshore. And I literally looked up in the trolley car and went, what are you doing? I have enough money to make it to work. I'm not going to make it home. What's going on? I remember being so unhappy with that decision that I thought I made, because I couldn't see God's vision. I only saw mine, right? And mine was, I didn't have a wad of money in my pocket, and I didn't have a wad of drugs in the other. So how was I going to make ends meet? How was I going to survive? How was anything going to happen? And it wasn't until maybe a couple of years later that I was in a dojo. A friend of mine, Jeff, that I met in the dojo. And I remember Jeff's a big guy. At that time he was about 300 pounds, and we were sparring one day and he broke my nose. And I remember as he's trying to reset my nose, and he's laughing at me as he's setting my nose. I'm like, what's going on? Who is this guy? And I said, I like this guy. It's kind of funny how these people that seem to affect you like that sometimes become friends. It's the weirdest thing. But I thought, I like this guy for some reason. Jeff always seemed to have something about him. I didn't know what it was. Some type of like aura, some type of light. I can't explain it. But one thing I know is that Jeff would constantly pursue me by saying, hey man, you guys got to come. Bring your son to the youth group. Come to this church. You got to check it out. Come down to Alderwood. Check it out. And you know what? He pursued me for months. And then finally I said, okay, whatever. We're going to come. And you know what? It was a good group of people. My son really enjoyed it, had fun. And we started not only to get involved with the youth group, we started to help lead it, right? Or at least facilitate anything that was needed, especially with cooking. I'd help with some of the food. It was great. It wasn't until, and you know, blessings to certain people in your life. Mike and, is it Laura Lynn or Leanne Simic? Leanne, sorry. There's twin sisters. I always get them mixed up. They were running this Alpha program. And they said, would you like to come to Alpha? And I said, I guess, what is it? They said, well, you come to this program and check it out. So the first night I got there, wow, the spread of food was incredible. I said, wow, the food was good. I might need to come back, right? And that first program I went through, I think it's a 12-week program. I really got to see and had a lot of questions about who God was, right? And how he was working in my life. I had no idea, but he surely was. And it wasn't until the second Alpha that I went to, as they asked me, would you like to lead this Alpha? That I really found myself that my heart was opened up, my eyes were opened up, because I was listening, I wasn't talking. And the awkward silences where God spoke to me, that's when I decided to rededicate my life to Christ. And things started to change. Things started to change. And to this day, I can't say anything, but it's God's grace that has saved me and allowed me to be here today. And a lot of times people will say, and it's kind of neat that Nick said Jeremiah 29:11, because that's a verse that sticks with me. And a lot of 12-step programs or Celebrate Recovery, a lot of times you hear that because it's such a prophetic verse that touches so many hearts. But I think for me, a verse that sticks with me is Proverbs 3:5-6. And and I got to look at it here again. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, but in everything acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. And I know for a fact that when I try to lean on my own understanding, it doesn't work. It's never worked. But when I lean on him, and I can lean on him hard, and he's there, and he has answers, right? So, like the question I asked you guys earlier, what do you hope for? Do you have dreams, right? And if you have those, what are you doing about them? Are you doing anything? Is God leading you in a certain place? Is the Holy Spirit within you? Are you denying the Holy Spirit in you? Are you allowing those dreams to come to fruition? Are you allowing your hopes that you hope inside are you suppressing them? Or are you allowing them to come out? So I pray every day that all of us can just allow those to come, because that gift of the Holy Spirit inside you, when it comes out, it does amazing things and allows us to come in community like this and share stories like I have today. So thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.